It's been an up-and-down season for Kendall Graveman. After an April demotion to AAA, the young right-hander came back strong from Nashville. He used his time in the minors to correct himself, and the ground ball pitcher got on a roll. He collected 5 wins from the end of May to the beginning of July, but recently Graveman has struggled. Well, the A's postseason hopes are slim. Graveman can look at the next 2 months as a time to get back on that winning track and solidify himself in the rotation for years to come. Graveman and the A's take on the Indians next. Friday Night Baseball from the O.K Coliseum on a warm night as it's game 2 of this 4-game series. Pitching matchup tonight, Danny Salazar for the Indians and Kendall Graveman for the A's. So a couple of talented young right-handers. A's will try to even up this series at a game apiece. Indians and the Athletics coming up on Comcast Sportsnet California. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Oakland A's Baseball. Along with Ray Fosse, I'm Glenn Kuiper. Kendall Graveman making his 17th start of the year tonight, Ray. His last 3 has been tough. He has gotten knocked around big time. And it really started in Cleveland against tonight's starting pitcher for the Indians, but Kendall Graveman has to get the ball down. We saw in his last start against the Giants, he elevated some pitches. He had a home run hit against him, but when he keeps the ball down, he gets ground ball out. So he'd like to improve on that, get the ball down, because like you said, he's got a couple of months to really show what he's capable of doing. He's going to be in this rotation, but I think for himself, confidence-wise, he wants to pitch well starting tonight. Cleveland Indians come in 7 games under the 500 mark. Not a great record, but they have a very, very good rotation. And what they've done lately, 3 consecutive complete games by their starters. So that group is on a roll, and they're pretty darn good. It makes you wonder if they had just scored some runs for them. We see Trevor Bauer, it started with him. He's got outstanding stuff. The A's will see him at the end of this series. But great curveballs you see there. Corey Kluber, of course, last year's Cy Young Award winner in the American League. He lost to Sonny Gray in Oakland, in Cleveland that is, with a 2-hit shutout, but an outstanding pitcher he is as well, and we saw what happened last night. With Carrasco, he had everything working, 14 ground ball outs. A's could do nothing against him. 2 hits the first inning, but that was it. He went the distance, another complete game. He did an outstanding job, but a little bit different story tonight. Indeed. Salazar, another strikeout guy. He's 6th in the American League in strikeouts. About a 97-mile-an-hour fastball. The A's saw it in Cleveland, and he would just rear back and throw the fastball. Capable of doing that 8 2/3 innings against the Athletics in Cleveland. So the A's seeing Carrasco last night, ground ball pitcher. This guy can rear back and throw the good fastball. All right, Salazar and Graveman is your pitching matchup. A's have lost 6 out of 7, so they're trying to get back on the winning track. When we come back, we'll have lineups and first pitch. It's the A's and the Indians from the Coliseum.
CSN California is brought to you by Jack in the Box. For a limited time, try the new Portobello Mushroom Buttery Jack with melted garlic herb butter. And by Toyota, the full-line automaker with the longest-lasting vehicles in America. Toyota, let's go places.
All right, we're set for baseball from the Coliseum. Game 2 of the series between the Cleveland Indians and the Oakland A's. Game 2 of 4. Here this weekend, game time weather presented by the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. Get to the beach. The admission-free boardwalk is now open daily. 73 degrees, 19 miles an hour is the breeze. So flags are blowing pretty good in right field. In left field, nothing. So who knows? Right?
So don't throw up any grass. Yeah. Just play the ball when it's played.
Here's the Indians lineup for tonight. Leading off and DHing tonight is Jason Kipnis. Then it's Lindor, Brantley, Santana, Gomes, Chisenhall, Urshela, Bourne, and Mike Aviles will play second base tonight.
Kendall Graveman, as we have talked, would like to get back on the winning track, and who better to do it against than the club that kind of started his downward trend. So Kendall Graveman 6-7 with a 4+ earned run average. Look back to his last start. Again, he needs to get the ball down to be effective, ground ball pitcher that he is. And we'll see right from the beginning, if he does that, then it should be a good night for him and the Athletics.
So Kipnis steps in, and we're set for baseball. 3-1 was the final score in last night's game. And the first pitch, sinker down and away.
It's like a boxing match. If you don't get there early, you missed it. Last night, all the scoring in the first inning. Yep. 4 runs in the first, and pitchers took charge after that and gave up nothing.
2-0 now to Kipnis, hitting .332 with 6 homers, 39 RBIs, and he opened the game last night with a base hit, but he was caught stealing. Missed again, 3-0. Umpires: Will Little, Stu Shearwater, Phil Cuzzy, and Jerry Davis. That is the crew chief, Jerry Davis. So the 3-0 pitch in for a strike. And the 3-1 pitch is low, and it's a leadoff walk to Kipnis. So the defense looks like this for the A's tonight. Canna, Burns, and Reddick in the outfield. Laurie, Simeon, Sogard, and Davis on the infield, and Vogt is the catcher.
I think one of the problems a pitcher might have who has been elevating pitches, and he's a sinker ball pitcher, overcompensating. And the pitches that ended up walking Kipnis looked like he was trying to keep the ball down, and as a result, too far down to issue a 5-pitch walk. A good pitch there, the first one to Lindor.
Lindor, 264, 5 homers, 19 RBIs. Shows bunt, and it's a strike, 0-2. Lindor had a couple of hits last night, scored a run. Roll foul. Kipnis has 11 steals, so you got to keep a close eye on him.
You've seen, of course, Josh Phegley and Stephen Vogt both doing a very good job. And Vogt last night, very, very quick release. Footwork was outstanding. Got the ball to second very quickly. And when you do that, that's all you have to do, especially with some of the runners getting very good jumps. That's good numbers. Very good numbers.
Not pretty good. That's really good. So 2-2 the count. And Michael Brantley will be next for the Indians.
I think if the Indians dugout was on third base side, Lindor would have just kept walking. He walked across the plate as if to say, yep, that's strike. Oh, I don't. Okay, I get another shot. Like a pretty good pitch, matter of fact. Good sinker away.
And he just barely got a piece of a good sinker there. So the count remains 2-2.
Well, you see Stephen Vogt missed the ball. That tells it right there. Why? Because it was foul tipped, could not hang on.
Exmo brought to you by Cache Creek Casino Resort. On the ground, Simeon scoops it, should be 2, and it is 6-3 on the double play.
Well, the important thing for a catch and thrown out base run is the footwork, quick release, and that's what Stephen Vogt has been doing. And that was the pick off at first base. Started to throw to second, Kipnis slipped, and then they got him. But here's the one. Watch the play at second base by Eric Sogard, keeping his head in there and then making a very good play. And then once again letting it go, and again a quick tag by Marcus Semien. So the quick release, get it down there, and catching coaches will always tell you your job as a catcher to get it there. It's the middle infielder's job to catch it. And your brother's one of the best at second. Put his face in there. He wasn't afraid.
Even if he was, he wasn't going to show.
Well, that's, by the way, speaking of that, Wayne Kuiper was second baseman for both Eckersley and Lynn Barker.
Yep, he was out there.
I mentioned Rick Manning last night. He was working on the TV side for the Indians, but at second base was smooth on the no-hitter by Dennis Eckersley and the perfect game by Lynn Barker. It's amazing, 34 years since the last no-hitter, and that was the perfect game in '81. That's the last one, almost with Carrasco in Tampa, but 8 2/3.
Corey Kluber's gotten into the late innings with the no-hitter a couple times in the last couple years as well. 2-1 to Michael Brantley, hitting right at 300. He's got 8 home runs and 56 runs batted in. Doubled and scored a run in that first inning last night. His only hit in the game. There's a strike. 2-2. Indians had 3 runs and 7 hits last night. They had a double, a home run.
Terry Francona and his good friend Raymond right behind him.
Brantley rips one to center, and that's a hit. So a 2-out single for Michael Brantley.
No, Josh Reddick had a home run on a similar pitch in Los Angeles. His fastball inside, and Brantley, a very good hitter, and just bang, right there opened up and kind of waited a long time, got that little foot step towards the pitcher, and then kept the bat back, and that's why he was able to hit the fastball so well to center. Open up, you roll over, hit a ground ball. You stay closed inside the ball, you get base hits up the middle.
Cleanup man Carlos Santana steps in, hit his 12th home run of the year in that first inning. Overall 227, 46 RBIs to go with the 12 home runs. And there's a strike. Deep left center field.
And it wasn't supposed to be inside, left it out over the plate. And that was a 2-run home run, making it 3-0 against Chris Bassett. And that is all the Indians score. The A's would score 1 on the bottom, and that's all the A's would score. And a very quickly played game, mostly because of the pitcher, Carlos Carrasco. Yeah, it was a strike. Good pitch. Yep. Called it a strike, so it's a good pitch. See, the funny thing there, you ask and the umpire says no, it's a bad.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know that ever happens. He may say, you know what, I may have missed it, but I can't imagine that happens a whole lot either. Brantley leads, not going anywhere, and the ball's dribbled slowly.
Oh, wow.
What a play by Graveman. Throws to first, got him. If it gets by him, it may very well be a base hit, but Graveman grabbed it, and that's a heck of a play. So that's how the top of the first comes to an end. first. The lineup is Burns in the leadoff spot. Laurie hitting second. Then Reddick, Davis, Butler, Vogt, Canna, Sogard, and Simeon.
And it is the hard-throwing right-hander, and he has proven that against the A's and the rest of the league. Danny Salazar is 19th start, one of those against the Athletics, and picked up a win 8 2/3 innings. He's allowed 15 home runs, so maybe some of those fastballs have straightened out, but he is a young pitcher, and like Carrasco last night, he's going to be around a while. And in this rotation, they've got a very good rotation, and Salazar is right at the top.
First pitch to Burns. Fouled straight back. 303, couple of home runs, 18 RBIs for Billy Burns.
You swing at the first pitch?
Of course. 10th best batting average in the American League. Burns with 96 hits on the year. 12 doubles, 5 triples to go along with 2 home runs and 21 stolen bases. The defense for the Indians: Brantley, Bourne, and Chisenhall in the outfield. Urshela, Lindor, Aviles, Santana on the infield, and Gomes is your catcher. Close pitch inside, 2-2. Laurie to follow, and then Reddick here in the first inning. And that one at the knees on the inside corner, strike 3 call. So one out here in the first.
Pitcher fundamental practice, and none better than what this play was for Kendall Graveman. Good sinker that Santana tried to pull all that down headlong by Graveman, and if he doesn't make it, like you said, with the shift, everybody played him deep. That's going to be an infield hit. But Graveman just laid out, extended as far as he could, and came up with a great play to get back in the dugout. And that means the sinker is working to get that kind of a ground ball, and especially the play that he made.
Into Laurie. .278 for Brett Laurie. 0 for 2 last night with a walk. He's a good fastball, 95 miles an hour.
.25 and throwing that hard. That's pretty impressive.
And now 1-2. So he likes the fastball 66% of the time, and the splitter.
But you'd have to think that if, just like with Burns, he had 2-2, his go-to pitch has to be his fastball. I mean, why not? Just stay with it. That's a pretty good pitch there. But if you're a hitter, and just like this count right now, if you get anything but a fastball, it's got to be surprising. That they allow maybe a little bit off the plate and get it.
That one's ripped towards center. Bourne on the move, and Bourne makes the catch. Deep left center field.
Already 2 very good defensive plays in this game. We showed Graveman and Michael Bourne. See the rotation on that ball. It was not the good fastball, and line drive, but unfortunately for Laurie, ball more towards center field, not the left center. So his defense helped Salazar to get to it.
So with 2 outs, Reddick hits. Reddick fouls the first pitch back. .292 with 13 home runs, 58 RBIs for Reddick. He knocked in the A's only run last night. His first inning double. A little bit high. Remember, the A's did not have a hit in the final 8 innings of last night's game. Brantley, the left fielder, a couple steps into foul territory, makes the catch. Side retired. 3 up, 3 down inning, and we're going to the second. No score between the A's and the Indians. Holmes, Chisenhall, and Urshela. Graveman gave up a walk and a single in the first inning, but he got a little help with the double play. First pitch to Gomes, swing and a miss. Off-speed pitch out of the strike zone, but Gomes chased it. Gomes was 0 for 3 last night. Indians come into tonight's game with a 47-54 record. They are in last place in the Central, 14 games behind the Royals.
It's amazing when the A's were back in Cleveland. Brad Mills, Terry Francona, and there was talk the Indians, if they had swept the A's right before the break, they would have gotten 500. They thought they were going to do something special, and of course the A's won 2 out of the 3, including the shutout by Sonny Gray, and that's been a big difference for them.
So Yan Gomes strikes out. Here's our Ford Right choice. Couple of trades by the Athletics today. The A's acquired Felix Doubront from the Blue Jays, acquired for cash. And Ryan Cook was traded to the Boston Red Sox for either a player to be named later or cash. Of course, Cook most of the year in AAA. And Felix Doubront, a left-handed starter. In fact, he just started against the A's on July 22nd when he was pitching for the Blue Jays. So, and from what I understand, Ray, that one's belted to center. Burns going back. He's near the wall, and he makes the catch, bangs up against the wall, and Chisenhall is retired.
Young man doesn't panic, does he?
Nope.
I mean, he's going back casually, like, okay, no big deal. He'll just go back, and it might be a home run, maybe not. Let's go back to warning track, and then I'll catch him and bang against the wall. I mean, that is very calm. And again, we just have to remember last year in Houston, he was running all over the place, but great concentration at the warning track. He knew he was approaching the wall and caught it, banged, held on. That was the important thing once he hit the wall.
Well, here's Urshela, who takes a strike. 261 with 3 home runs for the young third baseman. Simeon on the move, throws, and Davis keeps his foot on the bag. Side retired. 3 up, 3 down inning for Kendall Graveman. Bottom of the second coming up. It'll be Davis, Butler, and both. No score. The Athletics, followed by Butler and Vogt.
Second inning for the Athletics. Batting in the 4th position.
Davis 244, 3 homers, 18 RBIs, trying to get something rolling against Danny Salazar.
He looks so different. He admitted that that was his own doing as far as the beard. He just cleaned it up himself. That's a major cleanup. I mean, I don't know if today has a split screen show the way he looked before he cleaned it up, but that's a serious cleanup. Doesn't even look like it.
Nope.
I mean, with the beard that he had.
Or a very younger version of Mike Davis. Maybe.
No, that's not. No, that's not him.
He was headed in that direction.
But it's much darker, though. He's young enough they could stay dark.
Two and one the count to Davis. So the trade deadline has come and gone. Plenty of action today, as we figured there would be. Check swing, and he did go around this time, said Jerry Davis.
Well, one no, this one yes, and that was a swing. Watch the head of the bat, and that kind of looped through the hitting zone.
To pitch, fouled off Yan Gomes, the catcher. Got a pretty good piece of him, it looks like.
Well, just watch his reaction. This is the jolt off him as went up, got him in the left arm, got the umpire, and what's the left arm of Yan Gomes right above the glove, got him, and then that's why he went the way he did.
So usually the umpire will give the catcher a break by dusting off home plate. In this case, they both need a break.
They can both walk to the mound.
To the mound, that's right.
Thing is, with Salazar throws his fastball and it's a foul tip and misses the catcher's mitt, it can do some damage on whoever does it.
Salazar had a 3-up, 3-down, 1 strikeout inning in the first, and off speed, and he gets another strikeout. Nasty pitch there to Ike Davis. So the biggest name move today at the trade deadline was Yoenis Cespedes. Traded again. He went to the Mets for a couple of minor league pitchers. This season, 293, 18 homers, 61 RBI. So good numbers with the Tigers. But the Tigers decided that they were going to move some parts, and they did. So Cespedes will play the final 2 months of this season in New York with the Mets. And the Mets are 4.5 games behind the Giants for the second wild card spot. So they're still in it. And should also note they're only 3 games behind the Nationals in their division. So they're in a pennant race.
And they were looking for outfielder. They talked about Jay Bruce. Was he moved at all? I know he was.
Jay Bruce was not.
His name was batted around. The Mets were after him, so it must not have worked out. And Cespedes goes back to Citi Field, where he just crushed home runs to hit balls where nobody ever thought could be hit. That was in the home run derby a couple of years ago.
So there was a bunch of trades today. The deadline was 1 p.m. Pacific time, but Cespedes the biggest name, but there were some others. We'll show you those trades that were made today. 2-2 now to Billy Butler. Butler just got a piece of it in and out of the glove of Yan Gomes.
Well, he just barely, his ball ran away from Billy Butler. He got the bat barely on it, and just in and out of the glove, off the webbing of the glove of Yan Gomes.
Curve spins high. 3-2 to Butler. Payoff pitch, here it comes. It's tapped up the first base line and it stays foul. Wouldn't you say, Ray, that I think we talked about this in Cleveland? Salazar and Carrasco are very similar. They both throw 95. Their secondary pitches are, again, somewhat similar, but they look a little bit alike size wise, and they come right at you.
But he is signed for a long time. No wonder that his teams wanted to get him because of his cost control. But Indians said no. Team friendly contract for Carrasco, and we saw him last night.
Barehanded by Salazar, and he throws to first. So pretty nice play. So some of the other trades that were made today, in fact, all the other trades that were made today. Actually, last night, Mike Leake went to the Giants. Pretty good pitcher for the Reds. Broxton, Cardinals. Gerardo Parra goes to the American League. J.A. Happ was a late trade. They just got it in before the deadline. He goes from the Mariners to the Pirates. And the Blue Jays, they were not done. They picked up Mark Lowe, who's having a good year with the Mariners, and Ben Revere from the Phillies. So pretty good haul by the Toronto Blue Jays. Tulowitzki, Price, Lowe for the bullpen, and Revere for the outfield. So,
and I think the Seattle Mariners, you would never have thought that in the wintertime in spring training they would be selling at the trading deadline, as they are and have been. A little bit of Jack Sorensic today, and I mean, he was just could not understand what had happened. But you know, a lot of guys just did not have the years that they projected.
0-2 to vote. Yeah, so they traded Ackley, who really wasn't much of a factor for them this year, but Lowe, who was really having a bounce back season, and one of their starters had. So a busy time in baseball.
And you can see the teams who were doing all the buying and trying to load up with the teams that are all the teams that are in contention and feel they have something to do. And probably thinking more of the division that they can win it versus worrying about the one game play in and walk one.
Like the Blue Jays, for instance, Toronto is 52-51, and they're 6 games behind the Yankees. Bourne on the move, hustling into left center field. He's got it side retired. 6 up, 6 down for Danny Salazar, and we're headed to the third of score.
Bet, the #1 app for live baseball. At-Bat is up to the moment at any moment with in-game highlights, live look-ins, replay reviews, radio broadcast, statcast, and more. Get MLB.com at bat for your smartphone or your tablet.
So here's Michael Bourne, speedy center fielder, hitting in the 8th spot for the Indians. Aviles to follow, and then Kipnis. Roll foul, and it's 1-1.
Kendall Graveman can do exactly what Carlos Carrasco did last night. Movement on the baseball. You can induce a lot of ground balls. You can get weak ground balls, and that's what the A's tried to do against Carrasco last night. Could not drive the ball. Graveman already with 3 ground ball outs in the first inning, including the double play and his great play. He's got 4 as he started the 3rd inning. Works fast, and that's good. I mean, he gets the ball and goes. And such a nice young man, also.
Close pitch, 3-2 now to Bourne. Mike Aviles. Bourne hits it hard, but Sogard a couple steps to his right. And that's the first out here in the 3rd inning.
Just see the movement on that fastball. I mean, 3-2. And the fact that it went down and all Bourne could do is hit on top of the ball. There's the frustration for a hitter with a sinker ball pitcher. This ball's going to come in and goes right there, and it starts to go straight down. And you know, ideally, as a hitter, you want to kind of get under, get some backspin. He got on top of the ball and just a routine ground ball. You cannot, against a sinker ball pitcher, get geared up, load up, set him, and get a 4-seam fastball and drive it. Otherwise, you're going to get in the ground like Bourne did.
So the fastball and the cutter.
Yep. That's it. So you got a 4-seam and then a 2-seam that goes down, then the cutter goes away. It's kind of a slider cutter there. And when a pitcher throws a cutter and then it gets bigger, then it creates more of the slider, but it still has the cutter span. It's not a real big slider. In the case of Graveman, it's more of a chase pitch where he tries to get the right-handers to go out of the strike zone.
Interesting, though. Fastball moves one way, cutter moves the other for Kendall Graveman.
And there was the 2-seamer that came back into Aviles. Now he could throw the cutter to go away, just like you said, and those are the 2 very good pitches. There it was.
Tough play for Laurie. Throws across the diamond. Aviles is retired. So 2 away here in the top of the 3rd. That gets us to tonight's Cold Hard Facts, brought to you by Frost Brewed Coors Light. Multi-hit game leaders. Jason Kipnis with 38 multi-hit games. That's in all of baseball. He's really having a terrific all-around season. He leads the American League in hits. He's 2nd in average. He's 2nd in on-base percentage. He's 1st in doubles. He's 5th in run score. He's doing it all. And that's why he was an all-star this year for the 2nd time. All-star in 2013 as well.
Matter of fact, the catcher behind Kipnis right now, they were riding on that same party bus going to Cleveland to Cincinnati in the All-Star game. Sonny Gray, Stephen Vogt, Kipnis.
And Kipnis chased a pitch in the dirt, and that's a quick inning for Graveman. 2 groundouts and a strikeout. Bottom of the 3rd coming up. The Indians are in the midst of 3 straight complete games by their starters. Last team to do that, the A's in 2010. Dallas Braden beat the White Sox in Chicago. Gio Gonzalez got the complete game loss in Chicago. And then Trevor Cahill beat the Royals at home. 3 straight complete games. Braden, Gonzalez, Cahill back in 2010. And what the Indians have done. Salazar is working on number 4. So Braden, 6-2 winner. Gio, a 4-1 loser. And then Cahill with the shutout.
Trevor Cahill was the mystery.
He still is.
Yeah, but 18 wins in 5 months with the A's, signed a big contract, and Diamondbacks, and where's he end up now? Someplace in the National League, I think.
Yeah.
But it's just it's kind of sad because he was an excellent pitcher, single ball pitcher, and ground balls galore. Still a young pitcher, though. Still young, just like Brett Anderson, who the A's saw in Los Angeles.
3-1 the count to Mark Canha. Sogard to follow, and then Simeon. And that one just a bit low, and the A's have their first base run.
Yeah, we're talking about the next or the last couple of months of the season and how things from the A's standpoint.
Batting eighth, second baseman.
I think Mark Canha, we may see him play more against right-handers. I know Coco Crisp is probably going to be coming back soon. That's going to crowd the outfield a little bit. But Mark Canha, I mean, he's a Rule 5, which means he's going to stay with the club. But I'd say that unlike maybe some Rule 5 players, he may stay in the future too, because he has been that good, especially against right-handers. Showing the speed, versatility, a couple different positions.
Now 1-1 to Sogard, 242. No home runs, 23 RBI. And there's a shot to right field, and that's a base hit. And Canha's going to go around to third, and the A's have first and third, nobody out.
Well, we're going to see, and we saw for a period of time when Ben Zobrist on the disabled list, this young man can play defense. He comes up with some great at-bats and turns around a good fastball from Salazar and pulls it, enabling Canha to go to third base. So excellent hitting the first hit for the Athletics. Got on the first base runner, and the outfielder Chisnell playing deep. Once Canha saw it fall and on the way to third easily. And the A's first and third, nobody out. But Eric Sogard can swing the bat. He does not panic at all, lefties or righties, and he shows it again.
Simeon, 247, 8 home runs, 22 runs batted in. He was 0 for 3 last night. And he chops this one foul on the third baseline. This has been a tough area for Marcus Simeon lately. He has not driven in a run in 16 games. And stretch that out further, Ray, he has just 7 RBIs in his last 61 games. And
that's hard to believe. Yeah. The thing is, his defense is getting great. He's playing much better defensively with all the hard work and just the time. We expected him to do that.
Right to third, under the glove, it's picked up, and the out is not recorded at first, and somehow the Indians didn't get anybody, and the A's get a run.
Terry Francona is thinking about maybe a run at first base, and Brad Mills on the phone. They're going to possibly challenge it, but you're right, third base. This young man has been playing outstanding defense, and it was a bang-bang. It's a question of whether the tag was applied by Santana before the foot hit the bag. Urshela only play, maybe had a chance to go to the plate, but yeah, I think he tagged him after. Maybe never did tag him. He never touched him, and Urshela maybe thinking about the runner going home, and the tag by Santana, no tag applied, and that's the reason. Play will continue. Ty Waller helping. But you see it bang bang. Couldn't tell initially whether it was a tag or not. But yeah, that seemed like with Canha on the move, Urshela was thinking about the play, going to the plate. But it was hard hit enough that it could have been a double play around the horn. And that's what you want to do with that kind of a ball that's hit hard.
So the run comes in to score. It's an E5. And here's Burns.
He does get an RBI, doesn't he? You can't assume a double play, and he was going on contact, right? Well, there's a no tag, and
so the A's catch a break and get a run. Pop up foul. It's past the A's dugout. So the count 1-1.
Well, Mark Canha, see what he's doing at third base, and he kind of hesitated, and that is why the E5 with no RBI. If he's going on contact, which really he should have, because again, the rule of thumb, slow hit ball. When you think the only play is a play at the plate, you delay, or you actually don't run because that's going to be the only play. If a double play can be turned, was that ball hit hard enough? Had he caught it, would have been a double play. So the A's though catch a break, and that's all they care about, getting on the board.
I think the Indians are thinking, how did we not even get one out?
And I think it was
Urshela
Urshela was thinking the plate.
Yeah, he may have
instead of
looked up a
catching the
little
ball and going around the horn.
Lowry to follow. A run in for the A's here in the third. And Billy Burns swings and misses, and that's a big strikeout for Danny Salazar. Burns strikes out for the second time.
Well, this is a fastball down the middle, and previous time, first at bat, he took the fastball in the corner and just trying to slap to make contact, could not do it with the good hitter from Salazar.
So one out, and Lowry steps in. Sogard at second, Simeon at first. So when I said it's been tough for Simeon to get RBIs lately, I was trying to help him. Couldn't even get one there. He's would take the run. However, it shows up on the stat sheet. Fastball, 96 miles an hour, but outside, 2-0.
Yeah, you know, when you're no hit for 10 consecutive innings, any kind of a run helps, and that's what happened. As you mentioned, 8 innings last night and 2 tonight without the A's getting a hit.
To a pitch, not close. 3-0.
Salazar overthrowing just a little bit. That's what a fastball pitcher, a strikeout pitcher, will do occasionally. And try to get a little bit extra on the fastball, and as a result, end up throwing it out of the strike zone.
And that one a high strike call. Didn't have to be. And now it's 3-1. Strikeout leaders in the American League. Look at that. 4 of their starters are in the top 10. Swing and a miss. And came right at him. 3-2. And no surprise then that the Indians, as a staff, lead the American League in strikeouts. Foul right side.
His staff kind of reminds me of Cleveland Indians staff back in mid-60s. Sam McDowell, Steve Hargan, Louis Tiant, and Sonny Siebert. A 4-man rotation. Sam McDowell, of course, the hardest throwing, striking out over 300 a season pretty consistently. 4 great pitches. There's a 5-man rotation now by all clubs.
0-2 pitch. Here it is, and it's fouled again.
You notice neither time that the A's have sent the runners on 3-2, and that is a result of the stat we just showed. Number of strikeouts. You don't want to run into a double play with a strikeout. Not to say that Laurie's going to strike out, but Melvin would like to see Josh Reddick get a chance if there is a strikeout instead of a strike him out and throw him out.
Bounced over the mound. Second base, the out is recorded there. Aviles fielded it and had to flip it behind him. So Lindor grabs it. So the runner's now at the corners with 2 outs.
Kind of an interesting play by Aviles to reach back, and I think it might have surprised Lindor, it looked like, because Lindor maybe wasn't expected it, and there comes the ball, and they had to hurry and put his foot on the bag, and that's why Marcus Semien got on him the way he did. I don't know that Lindor was expecting the play. And there's that unfamiliarity. You just have to know that it's there. He could have come across and taken a different direction and may have been able to at least attempt a double play.
So see if the A's can get a 2-out hit from Reddick. It's this one high and foul. The 2-out hit has been a hot spot for Josh Reddick this year. 432 with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. That's the 3rd best in the American League. So this is his spot.
And here's that big hole on the left side again, as we have detailed many times with the shift. And that's an unintentional fastball inside. It worked out as Jan Goemsen set up outside.
So Reddick behind in the count, 0-2, trying to fight back. High fastball, and it is high. Reddick takes it. So 57 pitches for Danny Salazar already in this game, so the pitch count's pretty high. He's got 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. That 1 walk just scored Montana. Reddick reaches for it, stays alive.
Swing right there, I think showed, but that he likes to go to the opposite field. The outfield really shading him to hit the ball to left field, whereas the shortstop Lindor a little bit closer to second, but he didn't think about trying to pull the outside pitch, and that's why the hole is created on the left side. But the left fielder is playing him as a right-handed pull hitter.
Another foul ball.
Impressive.
That is impressive.
Take the home runs to right field. Those years of mistake pitches, and 3 to center field, none to the left field as far as home runs, but 25 hits.
The Rays only struck out 38 times this year. Outside. So 2-2 the count. Much different and much better hitter this year than we've seen, well, really since he's been here. I think he did hit 32 home runs not that long. This one's hit in the air, shallow left center. And the center fielder Michael Bourne grabs it. Reddick slams his helmet, and the A's get a run. 1-0 Indians lead. So Kendall Graveman will face Lindor, Brantley, and Santana. A shutdown inning opportunity for Graveman. And his first pitch to Francisco Lindor is a ball. Lindor hit into a double play in the first inning. Strike on the inside corner. This is the final day of July. Indians 12-13 this month. A's 10-13 in July. So we'll move into August tomorrow. Defense straight away for Lindor. We enjoy seeing that straightaway defense. Everything seems normal when we see that.
Alternate gold jerseys just shine out there, don't they, with the white pants? Now that is about as straight as you see. Billy Burns, if he could take 3 steps to the left, he'd be right behind second base and everybody would be straight up. Should be a single away. He just kind of knocked his head to the outside part of the plate.
In the hole, Simeon throws on the run, and they did not quite get Lindor, but a nice play by Marcus Simeon. And Lindor just very fast, and he's coming on the left side of the batter's box.
And he was running as he hit it, and that helped him once he got past Laurie. Nice play by Marcus Simeon, showing off the strong arm, accurate throw, and just too much speed, but a very good play by Marcus Simeon to be able to get in the hole, make the strong throw on the run towards third base, and that is all Lindor getting down the line. But few guys he would have thrown out with that kind of a play.
So leadoff single. That's the second hit for the Indians. Here's Michael Brantley. Quick throw. Nice play. Mike Davis says timeout.
Well, Bob Melvin out.
And glance at that one.
Yeah, and Bob Melvin, that's why Ike Davis said let's time out. He was leaning. What a quick throw, and let's take a look at it. Oh my, yes, they got him easily. Check the right hand going in there. It's not even on. And again, just like we've talked before, with the fingers going up, runners do not want to jam the fingers into the bag. So Lindor hit his palm with the fingers up, and Ike Davis got him before the fingers got him. And I can't believe it, but watch the fingers go up, and that, if they go straight, he jams his fingers in the bag. He might be safe, but he might be out of the game. But because of that, Ike Davis with a quick tag, that should be an easy call. Yep.
Stu Shearwater is the first base umpire.
They're showing on. And again, really, it wasn't even that close.
Nope.
And Lindor, just a slight move, or at least lean towards second base. Look at all that good food coming in behind the umpires. See all that? It's the fingers up, the palm on the ground, the tag before the fingers at the bag, New York. I mean, it's really, it should not be taking that long, because that was pretty obvious. Wow. Now we're going to take a look at it, because this is taking a long time, but watch the fingers, palm on the ground, fingers up, tag, hands not on the bag. So again, good base running with regard to the fingers not jamming in the bag.
And he's out.
Good call, Ike Davis.
So the leadoff runner has been erased as Lindor gets kicked off first base. How about that?
Well, watch Lindor just slight move towards second base right there, just enough, and a quick tag, Ike Davis. And again, there's your first baseman with the glove. He's a left-handed thrower, glove on the right hand, so he's able to apply the tag very quickly. And very quick move also by Kendall Graveman with a footwork and a quick throw to first.
So here's Brantley. That didn't take long to get him off the bases. Brantley goes after the first pitch, pops it up. Sogard's going to take care of it, and he does. And just like that, they're 2 outs.
Celebrate the A's fancy footwear with the White Cleats t-shirt giveaway presented by Cache Creek Casino Resort on Saturday, August the 8th. One of the Oakland franchise's most recognizable and iconic trademarks, the White Cleats, the brainchild of Charlie Finley, and have been a staple for more than 4 decades. Get your tickets for this popular giveaway day now at athletics.com or by calling 877-493-BALL. August the 8th, next weekend. Saw Warren Chu today. I said, Warren, why weren't you wearing one of those shirts? Just Randy Duran. He said there was only one. But we have to give our crew great credit because they were showing them down Los Angeles because of where they were sitting. Didn't think they'd be able to show them, but they did. Had a chance to see that giveaway shirt next weekend, and it will be a good item to be wearing by the fans.
1-2 to Carlos Santana. Graveman made a nice play on Santana in the first inning. Foul off the foot of Santana.
Good sinker by Kendall Graveman with the back foot from Santana, not the front foot, which was protected. This could have been first and second and 2 outs. This play, Kendall Graveman, the ball way outside Graveman, just a head long and a great play to get Santana, who would have reached first for the base hit. But Kendall Graveman, one of the 3 ground ball outs in the first inning, a big play by him.
2 now to Santana. Just 2 hits for the Indians. Couple of strikeouts for Graveman. And make it a number 3 strikeout as Santana swings over an off-speed pitch. So we're going to the bottom of the 4th. It's the A's 1 and the Indians nothing.
Number 17, Mike Davis.
Time now for you to tweet your strongest fan photo. Use hashtag CSNCA DataStrongFan, and you just might see yourself in an upcoming broadcast. It's all brought to you by T-Mobile. So Ike Davis leading it off. Davis hitting the cleanup spot tonight. struck out in the second inning.
Okay, his reaction after tagging the runner at first base was priceless, where he just slumped his shoulders and said, "What?" And that was enough for them to challenge it. But I mean, that says it all.
Well, there's two people who know best.
That's right.
The tagger and the taggee.
That's right.
And you could tell Ike Davis had a pretty good idea.
And he was just slumped his shoulders and threw. Yeah, you know, and to think prior to the challenges, that would have been an out, or actually safe when it should have been an out.
Davis is retired at 4-3.
Well, in Cleveland, Salazar 8 2/3 innings, and he was pretty good. Matter of fact, he was very good. Big sinker there to Ike Davis. That's ready with a breaking ball down and in. Just reared back, and he was throwing. And you're right about the change of speeds that Carrasco last night. Salazar more of the strikeouts, but very similar in their styles.
Two starts since that game. He's pitched well, but does not have a win. This one's hit in the air, shallow right center. Bourne's under it. 2 outs.
Actually, just looking back, the A's Zobers to double in the 9th inning. It's 5-1. He hit Billy Butler, and Allen came in. Just
right.
2 outs in the 9th inning.
Now batting, the catcher.
Terry Francona gave him a couple chances to get the complete game.
Well, he hit Butler with an 0-2 count, so that's how close he did come to get to the complete game.
And that was Kendall Graveman as well.
That's right. Yeah, first game of the series. The A's won the next 2.
So 2 outs, nobody aboard for Vogt. Fastball right in there, first strike. Stephen Vogt, fly ball to center field in his first at bat. Hits been tough to come by for Stephen lately. He's 0 for his last 19.
You know, I think it's happened to Stephen Vogt. He was kind of under the radar, as they call it, coming up through the minor leagues, the big leagues, and all of a sudden becomes an all-star, and now he's got that bullseye where you have scouting reports and they say, Stephen Vogt, he's in the middle of that lineup, let's be careful with him. And so it has changed in the way he's been pitched and approached, and we've been seeing that.
So the struggles continue for Stephen Vogt. That's a 3-up, 3-down inning for Danny Salazar. We're on to the 5th. A's 1, Indians nothing.
Clients or employees, check out the A's Weber Sauces and Seasonings Barbecue Terrace, which includes a pregame barbecue meal and a game ticket in a private seating area. For more information, call 510-638-GO-A's or visit athletics.com/BBQ. Barbecue. And it's a good place to probably have to move for the fireworks, because that'll be eat the barbecue fast and then maybe move out on the field for the fireworks.
That's right. Head down to the field if you want.
If you want, but hurry. Capacity is limited. So get there fast.
Gomes, Chisenhall, Urshela here in the top of the 5th inning.
One of the guys that at times, of course, we know Mark Mulder, Mark Burley would pitch fast on fireworks games. And Joe Blanton, who always seemed to work quickly on the fireworks games, now a Pittsburgh Pirate.
Just saw that.
Designated by Kansas City, and Pirates got him. Pirates loaded up with a few extra players. Kendall Graveman from the Blue Jays. He's pitched well. Look at the young pitchers on this A staff and just see from that standpoint it's going to be good. You know, Jesse Hahn is massive to the right. Hahn has been shut down.
Good pitch outside corner, and Gomes strikes out for the 2nd time. And we talked in the open about the struggles lately of Kendall Graveman.
Number 8, Lonnie.
Tonight, much different. Remember, he went just an inning in the 3rd in his last start.
That was a tough start because he was going up against a young man who just turned 40, Tim Hudson, both from Alabama, and just did not work out. But he got the win, going 5 innings.
He's battled back in that game, and also, or almost, got Graveman off the hook. Came up a little short.
That was the story of the weekend.
Hit hard, just fine. So 2-1 to Chisenhall, who had a fly ball to center field in the 2nd inning. Curveball hung up there a little bit.
See some hesitation by Kendall Graveman after he's at least looking to get a sign. He stepped off and got a pretty good idea tonight of what he wants to do. Stephen Vogt and he working together.
That one grounded. Sogard dives, cannot quite get it, and it's into center field. So Chisenhall has a 1-out single.
Did not get the fastball in where he wanted it. Came back a little bit too much in the middle of the plate.
Now batting.
I think you want to start that at the hip and bring it back to freeze the hitter, but he got enough of the plate that Chisenhall could take it up the middle. Hit a ball hard to center field. In his first at bat, Chisenhall did. Nice play at the wall by Billy Burns. So ground ball pitcher looking for a ground ball to get to.
Pitch to Urshela down around the knees. Good pitch there. Dodgers leading the Angels 1-0 in the 3rd inning at Dodger Stadium. Santiago pitching for the Angels. Greinke pitching for the Dodgers. Kershaw was supposed to pitch. They moved him back to tomorrow. Astros and the Diamondbacks are tied 4-4 in the 7th inning in Houston. Carlos Gomez in the lineup tonight for Houston.
How's his hit? Good.
It's good. Good enough to be an Astro. So 0-2 to Urshela. And that one is launched down the left field line with foul. That one just hung up there. Urshela was way out in front.
But it's supposed to be down and away. It stayed up and in, and I guess Duffy last Saturday he hung a ball to him that he hit for a 2-run home run. A 2-strike pitch, and was trying to get on top of the ball and drive it down and close to the ground.
And that one reached for, poked to right field. Reddick's there. Reddick was playing pretty shallow. So 2 away here in the 5th inning. Indians are 12th in the American League in runs scored. So they've not been a great offensive team this year. They're 12th in the league in home runs hit. They lead the league in walks. How about that? It's not translated into runs, though. Last year, the Indians were 7th in the league in runs scored. The count. Ball trickles away from Vogt. .72 pitches for Kendall Graveman with a couple outs here in the 5th inning. In the air. Foul territory. Canna is there, and he makes the catch right in front of his teammates. So Bourne is retired, and so are the Indians. 1-0 A's lead as we go to the bottom of the 5th. PSN California is brought to you by PG&E, together building a better California. So 1-0. Group's having a good time. Looks like the A-team, doesn't it?
Really?
Yeah. With Korak on the far left there. 18+1. Little pop-up. Aviles grabs it. So Canna on one pitch, he's retired. So 1 away here in the bottom of the 5th inning. And that'll bring up Sogard. Only run in the game.
Now batting second baseman, number 28.
Ken Korak. He'll be joining us on the A-team tonight after the game during A's post-game live. We do that on Friday night home games. Although lately, we have not had good games to talk about. So we're hoping tonight is different.
I thought you'd bring that up after the A's had won tonight. Because it has
just
been,
the facts, Ray. Just the facts.
As ma'am. That's what Jack Webb said. Just the facts. Yeah, it's actually have been firework games that have been brutal. But tonight's a different night. It's almost August, so that's why it's different.
Sogard slaps it foul. Foul ball alley. It's been a busy place tonight. So 1-2. Sogard had a single in the 3rd inning. He lined it to right field. In fact, that is the A's only hit on the back end. Urshela throws in time, 2 outs. So just 1 hit for the A's in this game.
I think the young man at third, Urshela, is the one that made the error to help the A's score the run.
Shortstop.
As the game goes on, that play becomes a little bit larger each inning. Simeon hits. Simeon hit the ball to Urshela. The runners were at first and third, nobody out, and it was a fairly hard hit ground ball to third. The Indians, they would have gotten out somewhere for sure, but Urshela could not field it cleanly, and then his throw to first was late.
See if he looks up, because Canna, he looked up to see what Canna was doing, and ball scooted between his legs and threw to first base, a little bit offline. Catch and then look, not peek and try to look. Catch it when you're looking up, and that's what happened. And so far, that's the difference.
In the dirt, blocked nicely by Gomes. Hard breaking ball from Salazar.
Good hard breaking pitch, and Gomes, see how he cupped the shoulders down around the baseball to keep it close.
Fastball high, so full count. Foul straight back. Good swing there by Simeon. Pitch number 81 coming up from Danny Salazar. And here it is. It's hit hard, but right at the shortstop Lindor. Throws to first, and that's a 3-up, 3-down inning. So 9 in a row retired by Danny Salazar, and we're headed to the 6th inning. A's with a 1-0 lead.
And it's time for the Oakland Athletics Wheel of Game.
So we are headed to the 6th inning. It's a 1-0 A's lead over the Indians. So we saw lots of pitching last night, and we're seeing it again tonight. Graveman and Salazar are locked up in a good duel. Aviles swings at the first pitch, lofts one toward Reddick. So 1 away. Just 3 hits for the Indians. Graveman 5 1/3, Salazar 5 innings. So the only run, an unearned run. We showed you the play.
Let's think back to Kendall Graveman against the Angels. Made one mistake to Albert Pujols. in Anaheim. Fastball missed inside, home run. He lost 1-0. So maybe tonight redeem himself with an unearned run and get a victory against the Cleveland Indians.
Graveman jumps ahead of Kipnis 0-2. Kipnis has walked and struck out. And that one just missed, but a good 0-2 pitch by Graveman.
Just went through 6 pitches.
Boy, I didn't know Kendall Graveman had that many.
He's one of the fastball end from the beginning. Just overthrew it.
See what it is. And a good one. And Kipnis strikes out. So Kipnis strikes out for the 2nd time, and that's 5 strikeouts now for Graveman.
Come to the O.K. Coliseum Tuesday, August the 18th for the Mark McGwire bobblehead giveaway driven by Chevrolet. Big Mac will be on hand as the Dodgers will be here as we honor his A's career. The all-time A's home run leader helped the A's reach 3 straight World Series from 1988 through 1990 and win the title in 1989. For tickets, call 877-493-BALL or visit athletics.com. Tickets. General manager of the '89 team and a great MVP player for the Cleveland Indians, number 7, Al Rosen, worn on the sleeves of the Cleveland Indians as he passed away this March. But he was an MVP, great player with the Indians, and went on to become an executive. And there is the number 7 worn on the right sleeve of the Indians players staff.
And on 3 pitches, Lindor strikes out. So Kendall Graveman is locked in. He now has 6 strikeouts. We're going to the bottom of the 6th. 1-0 A's lead.
Good for the Athletics as this ball hit hard. Shot bobbled the ball through the first. Cannon would score. Unearned run. That's all the scoring so far. But Kendall Graveman, how about this play in the first inning? Slow hit ball by Santana. Headlong. Reach picked it up from his knees. Threw out Santana. That would have been 1st and 2nd, 2 outs. And Kendall Graveman 6 strikeouts as he has continued to pitch extremely well. Also had a pickoff at first base of Lindor. So line for the Athletics, and so far so good. Find out what's possible with AT&T. Call 1-800-PICK ATT, mobilizing your world.
So Danny Salazar back to work. His 2 starts against the A's this season, very good. Not giving up an earned run, but trailing here 1-0. Burns slaps one to center. Michael Bourne is right there.
You can't hit it that hard.
Too hard.
Yeah.
So 1 out here in the bottom of the 6th inning.
Now batting third baseman, number 15, Brett.
The Rangers beat the Giants tonight in Arlington 6-3. Martinez over Bumgarner, interleague play. Steamy hot down there is what it sounded like.
Summertime in Arlington, Texas. Not surprising.
I saw 98 first pitch.
97 and last pitch.
Cooled off a little bit.
See, that's a revisit of the 10 was the World Series Johnson names.
Last time they were
Johnson,
there. Mariners beat the Twins 6-1. Swing and miss, good fastball.
I think
Nelson Cruz hit a home run. Excuse me, right?
Just thinking, Cap, we've talked about the A's and the trades and everything and all the others. It's really interesting to see the teams who made all the deals, how they were performing, the teams and the players the next 2 months trying to get into postseason.
Yeah, because really the trade itself, and it's fun and it makes baseball exciting and we all follow it, but does it work? That's the most important thing, and you really don't know till the first week in October. High in the air to right field. Chisenhall is there, and he's got it. So Laurie is 0 for 3, 2 outs, and Reddick steps in.
And really the personnel executives making all those decisions, they're the ones saying, come on, guys.
Yep.
I made these moves, and maybe we have depleted or mortgaged our future with minor league players. And it is hoped that the deals they made, and I thought some of the teams had talked about, one in particular, about not really trading for players like the Blue Jays. And Anthopoulos, the general manager, said don't like to trade for rental players. In the case of David Price, they did. They like to get guys that can have some certainty in the future. But in that case, they got one of the better pitchers, and they'll get David Price for a couple of months, and they hope October, and then see what he does as a free agent.
Foul territory. Urshela, a long run, and he cannot quit it. Well, those Blue Jays beat the Royals 7-6 in 11 innings in Toronto, and it was Josh Donaldson. He's kind of the walk-off king. He had a walk-off RBI single that scored Troy Tulowitzki to win it for the Jays over the Royals. So quite a ball game there. Donaldson finished the night with 4 RBIs. He's got 73 runs batted in on the year. Ben Zobrist had a couple of RBIs for the Royals. And that was a Johnny Cueto start for the Royals, which he went 6 innings, got a no decision. Now the team that has the second wild card spot right now in the American League is the Minnesota Twins. The 2 closest teams to them, Orioles and Jays, both won. So the Orioles and the Jays are now 1 game back in that second wild card. Little pop-up, and it's caught by Aviles. Sensational backhanded catch with his back to home plate, and that's how the 6th inning comes to an end. He covered a lot of ground, made a heck of a play.
is brought to you by Toyota, the full-line automaker with the longest-lasting vehicles in America. Toyota, let's go places. And by Xfinity, home of the most live sports.
So a good ball game tonight, 1-0. The A's leading the Indians, and it's the top of the 7th inning. Breakdown for Graveman and his outs tonight, as he faces Brantley, Santana, and Gomes, the 3-4-5 hitters for the Indians. First pitch in, first strike. Graveman has retired 8 of the last 9. Foul, and now it's 0-2.
Just enough off speed that, in this case, Brantley out in front and pulled it foul. So what Kendall Graveman is doing tonight is brilliant in changing speeds. Great movement on his fastball, changeup, moving away from the left-handers. Probably the one pitch that's not worked well for him is a two-seamer inside, bringing it over the plate. That's the hit Chisnall got back in the 5th inning on a base hit up the middle. Ball that really did not move as much as he wanted.
Canna moves back. He's got it. First out of the 7th inning.
Number 41, Carlos.
And here's Carlos Santana. Santana has grounded out and he has struck out. Graveman, a curveball in first strike. More action for Canna. He's right there. And that's the second out.
Fortunate enough, Cloud, this time of the night, you might be having a little difficult time picking up the ball, but fog coming in and making it look like it's going to rain, but it's helping the outfielders.
So with 2 outs, Yan Gomes steps in. Nothing for Gomes tonight. He struck out twice.
And the fireworks go above the fall.
You're right, though. Those are some pretty dark clouds. Interesting.
See, if this game were played in Cleveland, it'd be raining. Those are rain clouds in Cleveland. Here, just some cooling fog that's made it very enjoyable tonight.
Line drive, Reddick coming in. He's going to play it on a hop. So hit number 4 for the Indians.
And after striking out twice, Yan Gomes just staying back, letting the ball come to him and look the opposite field. Nice swing, no stride, pitch a little bit away from him. And I was thinking Reddick came charging in, Yan Gomes, and he was going to throw and decided against it. But good idea, but Yan Gomes, I think, was thinking the same thing.
And there's a liner headed for the left field corner. Canna has to hustle over. He picks it up, and they will hold the runner at third. So Chisenhall with the double, second and third, 2 outs. If that ball gets to the wall, Gomes probably scores.
That's excellent hitting, and Gomes opposite field for the right side. Now Chisenhall going to the opposite field, a ball that was running away from him. And you're exactly right. Last night, Sam Ford won against the wall. Ball got past him. Tonight, though, Mark Canna showing his speed again. He did with the ball in foul territory, with Bourne hitting it down near the A's bullpen, and again showing the speed, getting to the ball to cut it off.
So maybe the at bat of the game right here. Second and third, 2 outs, and Urshela is the hitter. First pitch chopped. Semien charges. He's got it. He throws, and he throws wide. Runner safe. Run scores. Davis tried to make the tag, and it did not look like he was able to get to it. Let's see.
Well, another ball tapped. Play quickly made, and you're right. He did not get it. Marcus Semien just trying to hurry the throw with Urshela getting down the line. And it was Urshela who made the error to help the A's score their unearned run. And Urshela hit the ball slowly, banged his left foot into the bag, but safe. And as Marcus throw a little bit offline.
So a costly error. First error in 14 games for Semien, but this one cost the A's a run and the lead. So a full meeting at the mound.
It's within a matter of 3 pitches. Gomes right field, Chisenhall left field. And Urshela with the ball slowly hit the shortstop. So the good sinker by Graveman actually hurt him on that one. With Urshela beating the ball in the ground.
So Pomeranz and Rodriguez, quick action for the A's. The hitter is Michael Bourne. Laurie right on the edge of the grass at third. And Bourne lays off a breaking ball. So single double error, and the Indians have tied it.
6th hitter in this inning. That's the first pitch out of the strike zone. In the second.
Close, but outside. So Chisenhall at third, Urshela at first. Swing and a miss. Nasty pitch there by Graveman.
A good changeup. Bourne thinking fastball. A lot of movement on the changeup.
Missed again, and now it's 3-1. The on-deck hitter is Mike Aviles, who's a right-handed hitter. And a swing and a miss. Another changeup. So Michael Bourne saw a changeup on 2-0, saw a changeup on 3-1. That's pretty good pitching.
The way he's swinging, throw it again.
Yeah.
Just because he's trying to pull the pitch and then staying away. Graveman is, and this hit back.
Runner goes, and the pitch is way outside, and the bases are loaded.
That's too bad.
Yeah, and a trip that Bob Melvin probably does not want to make, but it feels like he needs to get Graveman out of there, and he was just rolling along. He had retired 7 in a row, but 4 straight hitters reach here in the 7th inning. So when it's time for change, think Speedy Oil Change and Tune-Up, your oil change, tune-up, and smog experts.
Send your favorite A's players home again and again with the Mike Iagel Windmill Wind-Up Toy presented by Advantel Networks on Sunday, August the 2nd. 15,000 fans will receive the first of its kind giveaway of the A's third base coach when the A's take on these Cleveland Indians in a Sunday matinee. Get your tickets today at athletics.com or by calling 877-493-BALL. August the 2nd. That will be the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow, August the 1st. So, the chance to get the Mike Iagel Windmill Windup. And Rodriguez is trying to wind up and get the third out of this inning, keep it a 1-1 game as he comes in to make the appearance for the A's, and a big situation for him.
And he throws a first pitch strike to Mike Aviles. Always helps to get ahead when the bases are loaded. It's a 1-1 game. Indians have tied it here in the 7th. Aviles is 0 for 2. Check swing. Sogard has it. Side retired. So a run on a couple of hits, a walk, and an error. So we're reaching the 7th inning stretch. It's a 1-1 game, A's and Indians.
Presented by authority of the Oakland Athletics and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Athletics Investment Group, LLC.
Bottom of the 7th. Got a new ball game. 1-1. 1-5-1 for the Indians. 1-1-1 for the A's. What was it last night? 1-2-2 for the
1-2-2-2. So 1 run, 2 hits, 2 errors, 2 left off. Too many twos. Tonight, probably just 1 hit.
Matt Davis grounds it to the shortstop Lindor, who juggles, throws, and they got it. So Lindor with a very strong arm. So 1 out here in the 7th inning. Kendall Graveman, 97 pitches, 1 run unearned. So he pitched extremely well, and the error cost him.
There's not an earned run in the game. 6 hits total, 2 unearned runs, and a tie game.
Pitch to Butler in first strike. Speaking of tie games, Astros Diamondbacks still tied. It's 4-4 in the 9th inning. And the Dodgers lead the Angels 3-1 in the 5th. In the air toward Chisenhall, and he's got it 2-0. How about what happened in New York tonight, Ray? Remember a couple nights ago, Wilmer Flores, the young man who thought he was traded, disappointed. It was a very strange scene, and I think most people know what happened. Tonight, still in a Mets uniform in the bottom of the 12th inning, he hits a walk-off home run against the Nationals, the team they're chasing, and the Mets get the win. And Mets are just 2 games behind the Washington Nationals now in the National League East, and the crowd wouldn't leave.
Because they said, you've been traded.
You've kept clapping.
Now that's good. That's a good story. And you think what happened yesterday when we talked about it last night with the rain, the New York Mets lost a 7-1 lead. They had a 7-1 lead and ended up losing 8-7. A big blow. Padres and the former Derek Norris, a big 5-for-5 game. Looks like Drew Pomeranz is going to be coming in. Fernando Rodriguez got a big out with the bases loaded in the top of the inning.
One more pitch outside. Salazar now about to throw pitch number 100. So Pomeranz, he should be about ready. Shaw for the Indians, and he looks like he's ready. Nice play by Santana. He'll take it himself. So rolling along is Danny Salazar. Let's see, 3, 6, 9, 12. I got him for 15 straight retired.
By Chevron on Saturday, August the 22nd. All are encouraged to wear your Star Wars costumes and enjoy the post-game show from the outfield grass, but as you know, space is limited. Purchase a special ticket package to receive an R2-D2 meeting. Visit athletics.com/Star Wars for more information. R2-D2. You got one of those beanies? R2-D2 beanie.
R2-D2, one of the good guys.
You got a beanie. You got a beanie giveaway.
C-3PO. Han Solo. Some good guys. So when it's time for a change, think Speedy Oil Change and Tune-Up. It's your oil change, tune-up, and smog expert. So Drew Pomeranz comes in. It's the top of the order for the Indians. So Pomeranz tried to bounce back from a very tough outing at Dodger Stadium on Wednesday night.
Fernando did it. He had a tough outing also, walking a couple of batters, and Pomeranz followed him, and a whole bunch of runs scored by the Dodgers with 2 outs. Same sequence in a sense that happened on Wednesday. I think they'd just like to get to Mujica with possibility of a save. That is what the A's were hoping for Wednesday night, but it didn't happen.
Kipnis, one around, and it's 2-1. Kipnis didn't think so. It was called by Will Little, the home plate umpire. Kipnis has walked and struck out twice. Let's see if he went. I think he did. So Pomeranz gets the count even at 2-2. Lindor to follow, and then Michael Brantley. Lowry over, should have room. He will have room, and he makes the catch.
And once Kipnis had the first pitch, the check swing, it was kind of no chance at that point, and Joe Pomeranz got settled down after the 2-0 fastball, which was a called strike, or at least a check swing strike, and then came back and blew him away.
So the switch hitter Lindor steps in. He'll bat from the right side for the first time tonight. His splits are pretty close. Right-handed 268, left-handed 262 for the youngster. Shows bunt, pitches inside. Lindor will be 22 years old in November. And there's always some prospects, Ray, that you hear about for a couple of years, even if the prospect is not part of your organization. But you read about different guys, and Francisco Lindor is the name that's been out there for a couple of years. The Indians are thrilled that he's in the big leagues. Mahika starts to throw.
As we said, and we saw in Cleveland how Urshela and Lindor both brought up the left side of the infield. I mean, that's some youth for the future of the Indians. Kipnis is going to be a fixture, and Santana at first. Gomes doing a job catching.
Man, a pretty good at bat for Lindor, and he gets the 1-out walk. And there are some pretty good pieces in place with these Indians. I mean, you think about the rotation, which we've talked a lot about. They're all under Indians' control for quite a while. They have a good closer who's young, but this year just have not been able to put it all together. They got off to a slow start, 7-14 in April. Had a good May, 4 games under in June, and playing right around 500 here in July. Brantley takes a high strike. Indians with a payroll of $87 million this year. That's 24th out of 30 teams. One is high, so 1-1 the count.
Well, Kendall Graveman with Lindor at first. Big play in the game. He led off with a base hit in the 4th inning, but this is how close it was. Slight lean towards second. Quick tag by Ike Davis, and Davis said it got him. And you can see how difficult it is for an umpire to make the call like that. That was a quick tag, and with the challenge, it was overturned. Lindor picked off by Kendall Graveman.
Flip toward left center. Cannon gets over there, and he's got it, and that's the second out.
I'd like to be up here and see those take off, look like to go into the gap, and see the slicing action on the baseball right to the left fielder.
Now batting.
So now Santana, also a switch hitter, will hit from the right side.
Santana.
If you're not thinking about the challenges and the reviews and something that's been in play now a couple of years, you think back, it was the Cleveland club in Detroit when Armando Galarraga had the near perfect game, and it's a ground ball that was called safe and was out, but it had the challenge that then overturned it in a perfect game, and that would have been it. But that's how already the game has changed, and it is difficult for the umpires when they're on the bases, and sometimes even the balls and strikes called by the home plate umpire. Everything happens so quickly. Quick tags, quick throws, and it's remarkable that they are as accurate as they are on the calls.
Lowry has a tip off his glove. It rolls into shallow left field. Lindor hustles around to third. Lowry ranging far to his left, got a glove on it. And it rolled into left field. So first and third, 2 outs.
Well, I thought he's going to have an easy little flip to second base, and Semien was there. Whether or not he would have been able to make the play on Lindor, but just enough off the glove to have it go into left field. You'd think that maybe just off the glove to Marcus Semien, and Lindor thinking about going hard into second, but then realized the ball is in left field and they can go to third.
So we got a pitching change. Mahika coming in. Well, we got in-depth sports news for the Bay Area fan. Know it all with Sportsnet Central. It's brought to you by Hyundai. It's tonight at 10:30, and it's on Comcast Sportsnet Bay Area. Highlights and clubhouse reaction from our A's-Indians game. Matt Mayoku is in 49ers camp as NFL training camps are underway, and Scott Blair is in Raiders camp. Fallon Smith and Dave Feldman will host. Beautiful night in downtown Oakland, Lake Merritt. Here at the Coliseum, game on the line with Mahika facing Yan Gomes. Mahika last pitched on Friday night in San Francisco, so it has been a while.
Amazing, you move into a closer role, you're not going to pitch as consistently as you might in another setup role, but always trying to hold off the closer, and the event you need him, and tonight A's need it. Trying to maybe get out of the inning and score a run and maybe try to save it. So big at bat now.
2-1 the count to Yan Gomes, who has struck out twice and singled and scored. Lindor at third, Santana at first. And that one just a touch high. Mahika thought it was a strike, and it looked like a strike.
You know, he called the same pitch to Lindor. The Pomeranz said actually that one was better than the one called on Lindor, which was the first strike in the at bat.
3-1 and a good rip by Gomes. That was the pitch to hit for him. So 3-2, that'll get Santana, the runner at first, on the move. So the crowd over 28,000 making noise, and here's the 3-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. He struck him out. So Mahika gets Gomes, and the Indians strand a pair in the top of the 8th inning. So bottom of the 8th coming up. It's still a 1-1 game.
This game summary brought to you by your local Toyota dealers. 1-6-1 for the Indians. 1-1-1 for the Athletics. And Danny Salazar is back out there for the 8th inning, sitting right at 100 pitches. Kendall Graveman pitched well, just an unearned run. And the A's offense really struggling. 1 hit in the last 15 innings. That's not good. They got 2 hits last night in the very first inning. Nothing for the final 8 innings. And 1 hit through 7 tonight. Wow.
And you think as recent as a week ago Sunday, they had 5 home runs in the game against the Twins.
Canna, Sogard, and Simeon here in the bottom of the 8th inning. A little bit high. 1-1 the count. Good breaking ball. Canna has walked and scored. He has popped out. Salazar looking at his pitch counts this year. He's gone up to 115 a couple times. He's been at 113 3 times. So he's got a little bit left. And he grabs this one. Side arms to first. Canna's retired, 1 out. Make sure you join us tonight on A's post-game live for the A team. All 4 broadcasters, Vince, Ray, Ken, and myself will get together, have an unscripted roundtable discussion about tonight's game. It's only on A's post-game live and 95.7 The Game. It's coming up after the game. So us 4 will get together. Those 2 gentlemen, Ken and Vince, will come on over to the TV side.
Why don't we script it tonight?
Scripted out
instead of being unscripted. Hi,
I'm Vince. 1-0 to Sogard, and Sogard a 1 hopper to Aviles to a 1. So I have an unofficial count of 106 pitches, and I have an unofficial count of 17 consecutive retired by Salazar. Simeon reached on the air in the 3rd inning. And that's it, right? Laurie reached on a fielder's choice in the 3rd, but an out was recorded.
Right. You're right.
17 consecutive hitters retired. Last night, the A's final 16 hitters were retired. And I'm telling you, folks, can say, well, the A's hitters are struggling. You have to give this pitching staff for the Indians credit. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
Statistically, it may not jump out, team ERA, middle of the pack, but where their starters come right at you. So 1-2 the count.
I think it's very understandable as to why the Indians were reluctant to part with any of their starters. Because when you have the kind of starters the Indians do, there's one Carrasco right in the middle. They have been good. Every team always talks about needing pitching. Well, the Indians have it. The A's have it. So, I mean, you build around that.
Two pitch, here it is. Swing and a miss. He struck him out. So that is 4 strikeouts for Danny Salazar, and he has retired 18 consecutive A's hitters. 1-1 going to the 9th.
1-1. It is the 9th inning at the Coliseum. Mahika stays out there. He got the big strikeout of Gomes with runners at first and third in the 8th inning. So he'll face Chisenhall, Urshela, and Bourne if anybody were to get on Aviles. Indians with 6 hits. They've stranded 7 through the first 8 innings. Low strike, 1-1 the count.
Strike zone's floating, but it's all over the place.
Down the left field line, but it'll reach the seats. Pretty good distance, but well foul. So 1-2 to Chisenhall, who has singled and doubled and hit a fly ball to center field. Reaches for that one, slices it foul.
Even though Edward Mahika has closed games before, going back to St. Louis, but he's been more of a setup, which really, from a closing standpoint, allows him to pitch more than just one inning, multiple innings, and maybe that could benefit the A's. Tyler Clifford has told the skipper he can do the same thing.
And Chisenhall reached for that one a little bit, but got a good part of the bat on it and hits it into center field for a hit. He's 3 for 4.
Here's tonight's Honda player of the game, Kendall Graveman. Great job tonight. Unfortunate unearned run, but the player of the game is 6 2/3 innings, 5 hits, a run. It was unearned, 6 strikeouts, as he had all of his pitches working, and it was just an inning in which he had retired the first 2 fly balls in the 7th inning. Had to pick off also of Lindor, but then the Gomes base hit, the double by Chisenhall, and then the infield slow hit ball. You think of the great play that he made on Santana's ball. It was a similar type ball that was hit by Urshela, who is hitting now. Happened to get first base on the air.
So that is the go-ahead run. Outside, 1-1 to Urshela, who is grounded out, flied out, and then he reached on that costly Simeon error. The Indians have had a handful of opportunities. The A's, their only opportunity was in the 3rd inning, and that's when they scored their run. Runner goes, swing and a miss. Vogt's throw is high, and Simeon tried to reach up, catch it, and then swipe down on a tag, but could not quite do it, and it's a stolen base. It almost looked like, Ray, maybe a hit and run. Chisenhall did not get a huge jump, and he looked back.
Yeah. And it was a big swing by Urshela, and it was, you have that kind of a swing, it's more of a swing hard, make contact instead of just trying to make contact. There's the look back by the runner. Chisenhall just happened to be a high throw. A good throw would have gotten him on the busted hit and run. Happened last night.
As previously announced, the shuttle gate is closed. Now, if you would like
last
to
stolen base last September, but
from gate C,
it just did not, he did not have a huge lead, but he's got decent speed. So now 1-2 with lead run at second base. Fouled back to the screen, pitch up and away, and Urshela, it almost looked like that's where he wanted it, trying to hit the ball to the right side. Michael Bourne will be next.
And that was really an approach it should have been on a hit and run.
Exactly.
He had the huge swing, and I guess the Indians are fortunate that it was a high throw by Vogt. Otherwise, it would have been a caught stealing on the busted hit and run.
Fastball outside, so the count even at 2-2. Fernando Abad working quickly, maybe getting ready for Michael Bourne. playing right behind Chisenhall. Now he backs off toward his position, and it's a swing and a miss. He struck him out. So again, a pitch away, which should be where Urshela is looking for it, but he had a big swing.
Well, Vihika, just a sneaky fastball. He got Gomes last inning with a couple of runners on base, and this fastball, you look at it and you say it's pretty hittable, but gets on the hitters and kind of explodes right at the last instant, and that makes it a good pitch, especially location wise. And you're right, that's a swing of not attempting the right side even with a couple of strikes.
Well, that's almost like that at bat. It looks like he had no plan.
That at bat looks like youthfulness. Which it is, and basically that's what it is. And
I mean, it may have been, it's one of the most important at bats of the game. Tying run or winning run, go ahead run at second base with nobody out.
And that's something Terry Francona's hitting coach Tyven Berkeley, guys work on that, trying to convince and teach young hitters that in those situations, even with 2 strikes, the attempt should be to the right side somehow. Get the ball to the right side.
2-0 to Michael Bourne. Aviles is in the on-deck circle. And Bourne drives one deep. Right center field. Nobody's going to get it. And it bounces up over the wall. Chisenhall's going to score to give the Indians the lead. And Michael Bourne with a booming double to make it 2-1. Well, he got a pitch. He's not a big power hitter, but he swings pretty hard, and he got a pitch right in the wheelhouse.
That was belt high, and he should have hit it as hard as he did. Matter of fact, he should have hit it out. That was the type of pitch to do that. I mean, it sounded great. No chance for Billy Burns, even with his speed. And the runners at first, it's a good break for the A's, but Chisenhall got to second, so on the ground rule double, he's able to score. So the A's are going to have to mount a comeback at the bottom of the 9th inning. Again.
Won the count to Mike Aviles. Not close, 1-1. Boy, Bourne dancing around, and he's base stealing. That's Cody Allen. He is the closer for the Indians, and he's pretty good. So 1-1 to Aviles, who has grounded out twice and hit a fly ball to right field. Running in on the hands of Aviles, rolls it foul. In the 9th inning, in the bottom of the 9th, the A's will have the top of their order, so that's good news. Bourne runs, swing and a miss, throw to third, and it's not in time. Ball pops out of the glove of Laurie. So it's a strikeout and a stolen base.
Bad news, the stolen base. Good news, strikeout. Bob Melvin going to the mound, but huge jump off second base. And you know, from the hitter standpoint, if Aviles didn't have the couple of strikes, he could have let him steal and have the runner third with 1 out. But with, at least with 2 outs now, the A's have a chance to get out of the inning, allowing just the 1 run to score. Good job by Brett Laurie to keep the ball from going past him.
So when it's time for a change, think Speedy Oil Change and Tune-Up. Your oil change, tune-up, and SPOG experts. Abad coming in to face Kipnis.
Number 56, Fernando Abad.
Join us tomorrow. The A's continue this 4-game set against the Indians. It'll be Aaron Brooks making his Athletics debut. He was acquired from the Royals in the Ben Zobrist deal. And it'll be young right-hander Cody Anderson pitching for the Cleveland Indians. Coverage begins at 5:30 with A's pregame live. So we get our first look at Aaron Brooks, the right-handed pitcher. If you haven't heard, the A's also acquired Felix Doubront earlier today. There's a decent chance Felix Doubront will get some starts with the A's the final 2 months of the season. So here's a bod to face Kipnis. The runner at third is Michael Bourne. And there's a pitch that's outside to Kipnis. Kipnis hitting .261 against left-handers this year, .377 against right-handers. He has had a tough night tonight. A walk, 2 strikeouts, and a foul out to third. Maybe it's that DH thing. See, you put a guy who plays in the field every day, and you try to give him a half a night off, put him in the DH spot.
They don't know what to do with themselves.
They don't always like that.
No. There's only one Edgar Martinez, and really David Ortiz, two of the best, at least in recent time.
Way inside, 2-1 the count. The Diamondbacks beat the Astros 6-4 in extra innings. Castillo and Lamb hit back-to-back home runs for Arizona in the 10th inning. So the Astros lose at home, 34,000 in Houston. Reddick is there. He's got it side retired. So a run on a couple of hits for the Indians. Bottom of the ninth coming up. The closer coming in. It's 2-1 Cleveland.
Over? Did you say over?
So the A's will try to tie it and maybe win it. Bottom of the ninth, the Indians leading 2-1. And when it's time for change, think Speedy Oil Change and Tune-Up, your oil change, tune-up, and smog expert. So the closer, Cody Allen, he's 20 for 22 in save opportunities, 63 strikeouts in 40 innings. So he's a young man, 26 years old.
And he throws hard.
Yep.
He airs it out, really a four-seam fastball, and most have the 2 and 4, but his is straight 4.
Tyler Holt comes in the game in right field, so Chisenhall is out. And it's the top of the order for the Athletics. Burns, Laurie, and Reddick. The story on Cody Allen, he was drafted
in 2011. And he was in the big leagues in 2012. Very little time in the minor leagues. Indians got him up. And last year, his first full year as the closer. How about the night for Danny Salazar? 111 pitches. 1 unearned run allowed.
Well, the 1 hit, though. 2 last night, 1 tonight. And the Dodgers scoring the 7 unearned runs at the end of the game on Wednesday night. And then last night, the 2.
Avila scoops it up. And the throw to Santana a little low, but he stays with it. So that's 19 consecutive A's hitters that have been retired. Right now,
number 15, Brett Laurie.
Hits are. It looks like there's 14 guys out there playing defense.
Every time you hit, that's usually what happens. If you're not able to get many hits.
First pitch to Laurie is a fastball, 95 on the outside corner. Laurie is 0 for 3. He reached on a fielder's choice in the 3rd inning. He's the last base runner the A's had. Reddick to follow. A couple of guys with power. Slider, and that's not fair. He's pumping 95 in there, and then he snaps off one of those.
This is a 4-run deficit when Kenley Jensen gave up the cut fastball to Brett Laurie for the home run. It was crushed, but that was a solo. And he had a 4-run lead, so even though he had the challenge, he threw the cutter, and Brett Laurie hit it. And that breaking ball, you just swung at the dirt. Really, that isn't fair.
He tried it again, but this one, he's way high. So 2-2 the count. Salazar goes 8. Allen here in the 9th. Fastball not close again. 94 miles an hour.
Bob Melvin would like to make some moves other than just bringing in a relief pitcher. I mean, they'd like to be able to pass along some signs to Mike Gallego, get some offense going, but unfortunately, it's not happened in the 2 games so far.
See what Allen throws on 3-2. Here it is. Fastball foul straight back. So power on power, and Laurie had a good swing.
The tempting thing here as a pitcher catcher is to remember the breaking ball that he threw in the dirt, because he's going to gear for the 95, 97 mile an hour fastball, and any spin of the breaking ball, he could change everything. Gomes, fastball away, he agreed. He being out.
And it's chopped over the mound. Aviles near second base. Jump throw, and Santana dug it out. So pretty good play on both ends.
Yeah, it was a pitch that just beat in the ground, and it took the veteran Aviles to make the play, and for Santana to do the same at first base. Avila decided instead of stopping and throwing, wanted to jump. Santana with the short hop, able to make it. Maybe he jumped to jump over the bag.
So it's up to Reddick. First pitch to Reddick is a curve that catches the outside corner. It's 0-1.
Don't think he liked the call. Get me over curveball first pitch. That's pretty impressive for Allen.
Tries the breaking ball again, and Reddick stays off it. 1-1 the count. Davis would be next if Josh can get a more. Infield defense on the left side of the diamond, slid over toward the middle just a little bit. Outfield shaded slightly toward left center. Fastball up and away.
We're starting to see more and more with the straight up defense, and with Reddick, that's about as straight up as we have seen in a while.
Fastball, and Reddick had a rip, and it's 2-2. Reddick with 13 home runs on the year. Second to Stephen Vogt and his 14. Is a fastball high. Good take by Reddick. Full count.
Looks like he's going to stay with the fastball, and that should help Josh Reddick. And maybe if there's a time to load up and try to hit a home run, this is it. 3-2. If maybe it's a predictable fastball, be ready for it. And it looks like that's what it's going to be, outside corner.
And Reddick bounces it to second. Aviles, and that's the ball game. So the final 21 A's hitters are retired. They get just one hit in the game, and the Cleveland Indians, for the second night in a row, get great pitching, and they win game 2 of the series. It took 2 hours and 34 minutes. Nice crowd tonight of 28,152. So the final score, the Indians 2 and the Athletics 1. You've been watching A's baseball on CSN California, part of the NBC Sports Group. Don't go away. A's postgame live with Brody and Carney starts right now.